The ambush was perfect. At least, that was how Admiral Kael'Thrix of the Vornak Dominion saw it as he stood on the command dais of his flagship, gazing into the black ocean of space. Before him, the tactical projection showed a single human vessel drifting calmly along a known trade corridor, its engines running at a steady, non-threatening output. Around it, hidden just beyond sensor range, 12 Vornak warships waited in silent formation, weapons charged, crews disciplined, victory already assumed. Kael'Thrix's mandibles clicked softly in satisfaction. The humans had come exactly as predicted, on schedule, alone, and unaware. The Dominion's analysts had studied human behavior for decades. Lone ships meant weakness. Cargo routes meant surrender. History had proven it again and again. For 3 cycles, the fleet had remained dark, suppressing emissions, letting the human ship pass deeper into the trap. Kael'Thrix admired the elegance of the maneuver. No wasted motion. No unnecessary risk. Overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. That was how the Vornak had conquered 8-star nations in less than a century. Humanity would be the 9th, whether they understood it yet or not. "Admiral," his tactical officer said, her voice steady, her crest displaying the pale gold of confidence. "The human vessel matches the profile exactly. Designation, UHS Wayfarer. Registry indicates long-range survey and transport capabilities. Minimal armament. Crew estimate under 30. Kael'Thrix allowed himself a slow, deliberate exhale. "As expected," he replied. "Signal the fleet. Initiate Phase 1 encirclement." Across the void, space seemed to ripple as the Vornak warships emerged from concealment, their massive hulls sliding into view like predators breaking the surface of a dark sea. One by one, they formed a tightening ring around the human ship, weapon ports glowing faintly as power surged through their systems. From the Dominion's perspective, it was a display meant to crush morale before a single shot was fired. Every species reacted the same way when confronted with such undeniable superiority. Fear. Confusion. Submission. On the main screen, the human ship finally responded. Its engines flared briefly as it adjusted course, then steadied again. No attempt to flee. No sudden acceleration. Kael'Thrix tilted his head, mildly intrigued. Most targets panicked by now. "Open a channel," he ordered. The communications array hummed, and moments later a human face appeared on the display. The figure was male, dark-haired, with eyes that regarded the Vornak bridge not with terror, but with something closer to curiosity. He wore a simple uniform, unadorned, and sat upright in his command chair as though this were a routine inspection rather than an execution. "This is Captain Aaron Cole of the United Human Ship Wayfarer," the human said calmly. "You've entered a restricted human transit lane. State your intent." A low ripple of amusement spread across the Vornak bridge. Kael'Thrix leaned forward, filling the frame with his armored visage. "Human Captain," he said, his voice amplified with practiced authority, "you are surrounded by 12 Dominion warships. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction." Captain Cole glanced briefly to the side as if consulting a display, then looked back. "That's unfortunate," he said. "We were hoping for a quiet run." The lack of fear was almost insulting. Kael'Thrix's mandibles flexed. "You misunderstand your situation," he replied. "Your vessel is alone. You have no reinforcements within range. Surrender now and your crew may live." For a moment the human said nothing. The silence stretched, long enough for Kael'Thrix to feel a flicker of irritation. Then Cole smiled just slightly. "Admiral," he said, "can I ask you a question before we proceed?" Kael'Thrix narrowed his eyes. "You may." "Have you ever noticed," Cole said evenly, "that humans only travel alone when they want to be found?" Before Kael'Thrix could respond, alarms erupted across the Vornak flagship. Sensor readouts spiked violently, flooding the tactical display with data that hadn't existed seconds earlier. Energy signatures bloomed around the Wayfarer, dense and layered, unfolding like a complex equation finally revealing its solution. "What is happening?" Kael'Thrix demanded. The tactical officer's crest flushed a sharp crimson. "Admiral, the human ship's profile is changing. Internal compartments are reconfiguring. Power output is increasing beyond expected limits. This is not a civilian vessel." On the screen, the Wayfarer's outer hull began to shift, plates sliding aside to reveal darker armor beneath. Weapon emplacements unfolded with mechanical precision, locking into place along its spine. The once harmless ship now radiated controlled menace. Captain Cole's voice returned, calm as ever. "Admiral Kael'Thrix," he said, "you didn't ambush a lone human ship. You answered a summons. Kael'thric stared at the display as if sheer disbelief might undo what he was seeing. The human ship no longer resembled the unassuming survey craft his intelligence reports had described. It had become something else entirely, a predatory form wrapped in layered armor and humming with tightly controlled power. The tactical projection struggled to keep up, icons flickering as new subsystems came online. "Admiral," the sensor officer said, her voice no longer steady. "We are detecting multiple redundant reactors, shield harmonics beyond Dominion standards, and weapon signatures I cannot classify." Kael'thric felt a tightening in his thorax. Unknown weapons were unacceptable. The Dominion prided itself on absolute knowledge of the battlefield. "They are bluffing," he snapped. "Humans lack the industrial capacity for warships of this magnitude." On the screen, Captain Cole tilted his head slightly, as if he could hear the denial echoing through the Vornak bridge. "You know," he said conversationally, "your analysts aren't wrong. Most human ships really are what they appear to be. Traders, explorers, colonists. We don't militarize everything." "Then why this deception?" Kael'thric demanded. "Because sometimes," Cole replied, "you don't need a fleet. You need bait." Kael'thric slammed a clawed hand against the command rail. "All ships," he barked, "weapons free. Fire a warning salvo. Cripple their engines." The order rippled through the Vornak formation. Lances of energy tore through space, converging on the human vessel in a coordinated strike meant to overwhelm shields through sheer volume. On Kael'thric's display, the beam struck the Wayfarer's defensive field and vanished. Not deflected. Not absorbed with visible strain. Simply gone. Silence fell over the bridge. "Report," Kael'thric said quietly. The tactical officer swallowed. "Their shields are converting our energy output, Admiral. They are feeding it back into their own systems. Power levels on the human ship are rising." Captain Cole's smile widened just enough to be unsettling. "Thank you," he said. "That saves us time." Without further warning, the human ship fired. There was no dramatic beam, no blazing projectile. Space itself seemed to distort for an instant, like a lens-bending light. One of the Vornak cruisers vanished from the tactical display. A heartbeat later, the visual feed caught up, showing the ship split cleanly along its central axis, its halves drifting apart in eerie silence. Kael'thric's breath hitched. "Targeted strike," the sensor officer whispered. "Precision beyond anything we've recorded." "Return fire," Kael'thric roared. "All ships focus fire." The remaining 11 warships unleashed everything they had. Missiles, plasma arcs, kinetic slugs accelerated to relativistic speeds. The void between fleets became a storm of destruction. Yet the Wayfarer remained untouched, its shields shimmering faintly as they drank in the assault. On the human bridge, Captain Cole remained seated, hands resting loosely on the armrests. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, voices low, movements precise. "Captain," a human officer reported, "enemy weapons analysis complete. Their firing patterns are rigid. Predictable." "Of course they are," Cole replied. "They've never had to adapt." On the Vornak flagship, panic began to crack discipline. Damage reports flooded in as the human ship retaliated, each shot carefully chosen. Another cruiser lost propulsion. A third suffered catastrophic shield collapse without a single human projectile visibly striking it. Kael'thric felt something unfamiliar coil in his mind. "Doubt. This is not possible," he said, more to himself than to his crew. "They are outnumbered. They should be overwhelmed." Captain Cole's voice cut through the chaos. "Admiral Kael'thric," he said, "you built your doctrine on fear. You assumed every species valued survival over dignity. Humans don't make that assumption." Kael'thric snarled. "You will die here." "Maybe," Cole agreed calmly. "But not today." The human ship's profile shifted again. New apertures opened along its hull, revealing weapon systems that glowed with restrained violence. Kael'thric watched as targeting indicators snapped onto his fleet with terrifying speed. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, her crest now pale with fear, "their fire control systems are tracking all vessels simultaneously." "How?" Kael'thric demanded. "They are not choosing targets," she whispered. "They are accounting for all of us." Captain Cole leaned forward slightly. "This is the part your history doesn't prepare you for," he said. "You conquered species that fought wars like storms. Loud, messy, emotional. Humans fight wars like equations." The first wave of human counterfire struck. 3 Vornak ships lost shields within seconds. One detonated as its reactor went critical, the explosion briefly lighting the battlefield like a newborn star. Another spun out of formation, systems failing, crew scrambling to regain control that would never come. Kilthrix's bridge shook as shockwaves rippled through space. His claws dug into the console. "Signal retreat," he said through clenched mandibles. "Break formation." Too late. The Wayfarer surged forward, engines flaring with controlled aggression. It did not chase. It advanced methodically, herding the remaining Vornak ships into tighter space, denying them maneuvering room. Captain Cole watched the tactical display with cold focus. "They're reacting exactly as predicted," he said. "They're trying to escape the kill zone." "Permission to deploy Phase 2?" his weapons officer asked. Cole nodded once. "Granted." On the Vornak flagship, Kilthrix felt the moment his certainty finally shattered. Sensors screamed warnings he didn't understand. Space around his fleet seemed to thicken, invisible forces gripping hulls and tearing at structural integrity. "What are they doing to us?" he demanded. No one answered. They were too busy watching their empire's superiority collapse in real time. The Vornak flagship lurched as if struck by an unseen tide. Kilthrix was thrown against his command rail, his claws scraping uselessly as artificial gravity fluctuated. Around him, the bridge lights flickered from imperial violet to emergency crimson. Consoles screamed warnings in overlapping tones, each more urgent than the last. "Admiral," the navigation officer cried, "we are being restrained by a localized gravity distortion. It's not a field, we think it's being generated inside our own mass envelope." Kilthrix forced himself upright, mandibles trembling. "Inside our, explain." "We believe the human ship has altered the space-time curvature around our vessels," the officer said, voice shaking. "They're using our own inertia against us. The more we try to maneuver, the stronger the effect becomes." Kilthrix stared at the tactical display. The remaining Vornak ships were no longer scattering. They were drifting, their paths subtly bending toward the human vessel like debris falling into a well. On the Wayfarer, Captain Cole watched the same data with detached calm. "They're learning," he said. "Too late, but still." A junior officer glanced up. "Sir, Dominion channels are flooded with emergency traffic. They're asking for terms." Cole exhaled slowly. "Of course they are." He tapped a control, opening a narrowband transmission directly to the Vornak flagship. Kilthrix's image appeared on the main screen, his once imposing form now framed by flickering lights and fractured command displays. "You could stop this," Kilthrix said, his voice stripped of arrogance. "We can negotiate. Withdraw and the Dominion will." "Remember this?" Cole finished. "No, Admiral. That's not how this ends." Kilthrix's eyes narrowed. "Then why speak to me at all?" "Because," Cole said evenly, "wars aren't won by destruction alone. They're won by memory." He cut the channel. On the Vornak bridge, Kilthrix recoiled as the image vanished. "Prepare all remaining weapons," he ordered. "If we are to fall, we will fall fighting." The response was hesitant. "Admiral, weapons are failing to charge. Their systems are rewriting our targeting matrices." Kilthrix felt something cold settle into his core. "Rewriting?" "Yes. Our fire control no longer recognizes the human ship as hostile. It's being classified as environment." Outside, the Wayfarer moved again. This time it did not fire. Instead, space around the trapped Vornak vessels rippled, subtle at first, then violently pronounced. Hull plating groaned as forces no armor was designed to resist twisted metal and snapped internal supports. On the human bridge, Cole stood. "All right," he said quietly. "End it." A single command was given. The gravity distortions collapsed inward, not explosively but with surgical precision. One by one, the Vornak ships imploded, their structures folding in on themselves like crushed shells. There were no massive fireballs, no heroic last stands broadcast across the stars. Just sudden absence. The flagship was last. Kilthrix felt the deck buckle beneath him. Bulkheads screamed as they bent inward, crushing consoles and crew alike. He clung to the rail as the bridge compressed, the walls closing in with merciless inevitability. In his final moments, Kilthrix's thoughts were not of defeat, but of revelation. The humans had not fought to conquer. They had fought to demonstrate. The flagship vanished. Silence returned to the void. On the Wayfarer, the tactical display cleared, red icons fading into nothing. The crew exhaled as one, tension bleeding away but never fully gone. Captain Cole remained standing, eyes fixed on the empty space where an armada had once been. "Damage report," he said. "Minimal," the engineer replied. "Shields held." Power reserves at 87%. Cole nodded. Good. A comm officer hesitated. Sir. Dominion listening posts are already broadcasting alerts. This engagement is going to spread fast. That's the idea, Cole said. He turned to face his crew. What happened here today will be recorded, analyzed, and argued over by every empire that ever thought about pushing humanity around. They'll tell themselves this was an anomaly, a trick, a fluke. The crew listened in silence. And some of them, Cole continued, will believe it. Those are the ones who will test us next. A younger officer swallowed. Sir, do we want that? Cole met his gaze. No. But fear fades. Stories last. The Wayfarer adjusted course, engines burning with quiet confidence as it left the battlefield behind. No victory message was sent. No triumphant declaration followed. The absence itself was the message. Far away, Dominion outposts received fragmented sensor data and half-decoded recordings. Analysts struggled to explain how a single human ship had erased an entire fleet without visible effort. Political leaders argued. Military councils panicked. Old assumptions cracked. And across the stars, in places the Dominion had never reached, other species listened. They heard that a lone human ship had been ambushed, that it had not surrendered, that it had not fled. They heard that it had annihilated everything sent against it. And slowly, cautiously, the galaxy began to reconsider what human truly meant. News of the engagement did not travel as battles usually did. There were no triumphant broadcasts, no captured footage released by victors eager to boast. Instead, there was silence where an entire Dominion task force had once existed. Patrol routes went unanswered. Scheduled check-ins failed. Long-range sensors showed only warped gravitational residue, like scars left in the fabric of space itself. Within days, that silence became louder than any declaration of war. On a neutral trade station orbiting a blue giant, representatives of a dozen species gathered in uneasy clusters. Holographic displays replayed the same incomplete data again and again. Distorted visuals of Vornak ships folding inward, energy readings that defied known physics, and at the center of it all, the faint outline of a single human vessel. They must be exaggerating, said a Thauran envoy, his translucent frill pulsing with agitation. No civilization hides that level of power in a lone ship. A Kesh observer replied softly, humans do. The words carried weight. The Kesh had fought humans once, decades ago. A brief border conflict. It had ended abruptly, not with conquest, but with a treaty the humans insisted was fair. At the time, the Kesh had believed they were being spared out of weakness. Now they were no longer so sure. Far from the trade station, the Wayfarer slipped into a region of deep space marked only by faint navigation beacons. Captain Cole stood alone on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back as stars drifted past the forward viewport. Course correction complete, the navigator reported. We'll reach the rendezvous point in 4 hours. Cole nodded but did not turn. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, older than he felt, younger than he knew he would become. He had played his part well. Too well, perhaps. A quiet chime sounded. Captain, the AI said, its voice neutral but attentive. Fleet Command is requesting a status update. Cole considered for a moment. Send them a minimal report. Engagement complete. Threat neutralized. No losses. Understood, the AI replied. Captain, may I ask a question? Cole raised an eyebrow. That's new. You authorized a full demonstration, the AI said. Statistical models indicate a 72% chance this will accelerate hostile interest in humanity rather than deter it. Why proceed? Cole finally turned, resting a hand on the back of his chair. Because deterrence isn't about hiding strength, he said. It's about defining consequences. The AI processed this in silence. Meanwhile, deep within Dominion space, panic spread like a contagion. Admirals demanded explanations that scientists could not provide. Engineers tore apart schematics of human technology, searching for weaknesses that might not exist. Political leaders argued over who had authorized the ambush in the first place. The name Kael'thrix was quietly removed from official records. In one dim chamber, a junior analyst replayed the human captain's words again and again. Wars are won by memory. The phrase gnawed at him. The Dominion had built its empire on erasing memories, burning worlds, rewriting histories, ensuring no defeated species ever rose again. Humans had done the opposite. They had created a story and let it spread on its own. Back on the Wayfarer, the crew went about their duties with practiced routine, but something had changed. The jokes were fewer. The glances at tactical displays lingered longer than necessary. We really wiped them out, a weapons technician murmured to a colleague. All of them. The colleague nodded slowly. Yeah, but they chose that fight. At the edge of known space, a small, unremarkable probe adjusted its sensors. It belonged to no empire, claimed by no flag. Its creators had sent it centuries ago to watch, to listen, to wait. For the first time since its activation, the probe flagged an alert. Human. Its creators would take notice. Hours later, the Wayfarer arrived at the rendezvous point, a lonely stretch of space where stars were sparse and signals faint. A shape emerged from behind a moon-sized asteroid, resolving into a massive human vessel, sleek, angular, and unmistakably military. "Welcome home," came the transmission. Cole allowed himself a small smile. "Good to see you, Atlas." As docking procedures began, Cole felt the weight of the past days settle fully onto his shoulders. The ambush, the annihilation, the silence afterward, it would all echo far beyond this moment. Humanity had been watching the galaxy for a long time, learning, preparing, waiting for the inevitable test. It had come, and now there was no going back. Somewhere, far away, a young officer of an alien species listened to whispered rumors of the battle. He imagined the lone human ship, outnumbered and surrounded, refusing to yield. In that image he felt something unfamiliar stir. Hope, fear, respect. The galaxy was changing, not through conquest, but through understanding a single brutal truth. Humans did not seek domination, but they would never accept submission. And those who forced them to choose would live, or die, with the consequences. The Atlas dwarfed the Wayfarer, its hull stretching like a moving city against the stars. As the smaller ship docked, magnetic clamps locked with a muted thrum that echoed through both vessels. For the first time since the ambush, Captain Cole allowed himself to relax his shoulders. On the Atlas, Admiral Reyes watched the docking feed with unreadable eyes. She had commanded fleets before, had signed orders that changed the course of wars, but this was different. One ship, one captain, an entire enemy force erased. "Bring him in," she said quietly. Cole stepped onto the Atlas's bridge moments later. The space was vast, efficient, and unmistakably human. Officers paused just long enough to acknowledge him before returning to their stations. No applause. No ceremony. Just respect. Admiral Reyes turned to face him. "You made a statement," she said. Cole met her gaze. "That was the assignment." She studied him for a long moment. "You went beyond it." "Yes, ma'am." A faint smile touched her lips, then vanished. "The Dominion is in chaos. Our analysts confirm internal power struggles, delayed responses along their borders, and a complete halt to expansion efforts." Cole nodded. "They're afraid of shadows now." "They're afraid of us," Reyes corrected. "And fear is unpredictable." Cole clasped his hands behind his back. "So is complacency." They ambushed a ship they thought was weak. They needed to learn what that assumption costs. Reyes sighed. "You realize this will accelerate contact. Not just with hostile powers. With everyone." "That was inevitable," Cole said. "We've been pretending to be smaller than we are for too long." Reyes turned back to the stars. "Fleet Command agrees. Publicly, we'll downplay the incident. Privately, we're shifting posture." "How so?" Cole asked. "We stop hiding," she said. "Not threatening. Not expanding. Just present." Cole considered that. Visibility as deterrence. Exactly. Far from human space, the echoes of the battle continued to spread. On a barren world scarred by old Dominion mining operations, a small resistance cell gathered around a flickering projection. The footage was grainy, incomplete, but the outcome was undeniable. "They destroyed them," a voice whispered. "All of them." An older figure nodded slowly. "Not destroyed. Corrected." The resistance leader straightened. "If humans can do this to the Dominion, maybe they can bleed too." Hope, once a fragile thing, took root. Within the Dominion itself, paranoia gnawed at every level of command. Fleets were recalled. Borders fortified. Entire doctrines rewritten overnight. Admirals who had once laughed at human restraint now spoke their name with caution. In one sealed chamber, a counselor slammed a clawed fist against the table. "They cannot be allowed to define the narrative." "And how do you propose we stop it?" another replied bitterly. "By attacking again?" "With what?" Silence followed. Back aboard the Atlas, Cole stood before a large tactical display showing dozens of systems highlighted in soft blue. Human space. Sparse, controlled, deliberately understated. "You're thinking about what comes next," Reyes said, stepping beside him. I'm thinking about what we've started, Cole replied. Stories have momentum. Reyes nodded. Then we steer them. The Atlas and Wayfarer separated hours later. Cole returned to his ship with new orders. Patrol, observe, respond only if necessary. Humanity would not strike first. But it would no longer pretend it couldn't strike last. As the Wayfarer slipped back into the dark, Cole looked once more at the stars. Somewhere out there, other civilizations were reassessing everything they thought they knew. Some would seek alliance. Some would test limits. Some would prepare for war. Humans would be ready for all of it. Because the ambush had not revealed humanity's strength. It had revealed its philosophy. Do not force us to prove what we are capable of. The Wayfarer's engines flared softly as it vanished into the void, leaving behind a galaxy that would never again look at humans the same way. The Wayfarer traveled along the edge of charted space, where navigation markers grew sparse and stars blurred into unfamiliar patterns. This region had once been considered irrelevant, too quiet, too empty to matter. Now it felt like the calm before something vast and irreversible. Captain Cole reviewed incoming reports in silence. Not from Fleet Command, but from places humanity had never officially contacted. Anonymous transmissions. Fragmented signals. Distress calls disguised as static. They're reaching out, the comm officer said softly. Carefully. Like they're afraid to be heard. Cole nodded. They should be. One transmission resolved into a clear message. A coalition of minor species requesting observation protocols. Not alliance. Not protection. Just acknowledgement. They want to know if the story is true, the officer added. It is, Cole said. But we don't need to say that. As the Wayfarer altered course, far away within Dominion territory, the consequences of the ambush continued to deepen. Trade routes once guarded by overwhelming force now lay abandoned. Patrols traveled in groups instead of alone. Worlds that had paid tribute for generations quietly stopped sending shipments. The Dominion had not lost territory yet. But it had lost certainty. On a remote agricultural world, a Dominion overseer watched human news footage leak through black channels. He saw no boasting, no celebration. Only a brief acknowledgement of a defensive incident and a return to normal programming. That unsettled him more than threats ever had. In another system, a Dominion fleet commander delayed orders he would once have executed without question. He remembered the way the human ship had advanced, not in rage, not in desperation, but with calculation. That memory stayed his hand. On the Wayfarer, a junior officer finally voiced the thought many shared. Sir, what if they come back stronger? What if they learn from this? Cole considered the question. They will, he said. Everyone does. Then why give them the chance? Cole turned to face him. Because if we wipe out every threat before it understands us, the galaxy learns the wrong lesson. Fear alone doesn't create stability. Understanding does. The officer nodded slowly, not fully convinced, but listening. Hours later, the Wayfarer received a priority signal from the Atlas. Admiral Reyes appeared on the screen, her expression grim. We've detected unusual activity, she said. Multiple long-range sensors across different empires are focusing on human space. They're not hostile. They're studying. Cole exhaled. Then it's begun. Yes, Reyes said. First contact won't be an event anymore. It'll be a process. The signal ended, leaving Cole alone with his thoughts. Humanity had stepped into visibility, and there was no stepping back. As the ship drifted, another presence stirred far beyond known charts. Ancient observers, beings who had watched empires rise and fall like tides, turned their attention toward the sudden disturbance. A lone human ship had altered probabilities they thought fixed. That was interesting. Back on the Wayfarer, the crew detected a vessel on passive sensors. Small. Non-threatening. Its design was unfamiliar, its power signature minimal. They're not running, the sensor officer noted. They're waiting. Cole studied the data. Open a channel. The screen filled with a hesitant alien face. Wide eyes. Nervous posture. Not a warrior. We mean no harm, the being said quickly. We only wish to see if the stories were real. Cole softened his tone. They are. But stories don't tell you everything. The alien swallowed. Then, what do humans want? Cole paused before answering. To be left in peace, he said. And to leave others in peace. As long as that choice is mutual. The transmission ended soon after, but its significance lingered. This was the first ripple of something new. Not conquest. Not submission. Recognition. As the Wayfarer continued its patrol, Cole understood that the ambush had been only the opening note of a much longer song. Humanity had declared itself, not through words, but through restraint backed by undeniable force. And across the galaxy, species both great and small were adjusting their futures around that truth. The Wayfarer's presence began to change the rhythm of space around it. Ships that once would have fled at the first hint of an unknown contact now slowed instead, maintaining cautious distance. They watched. They listened. They learned. Captain Cole noticed the pattern within days. "They're not afraid anymore," the navigator observed. "At least, not in the way the Dominion was." Cole nodded. Fear sharpens attention. Respect invites curiosity. The distinction mattered. One encounter stood out above the rest. A convoy of merchant vessels, battered and mismatched, drifting near a collapsed jump corridor. Their drives were damaged, their shields barely holding. In the old order, such a convoy would have been easy prey. "Distress signal detected," the comm officer said. "They're broadcasting on all open bands." Cole didn't hesitate. "Bring us alongside. Offer assistance." The crew exchanged glances but moved quickly. When the channel opened, the convoy's lead captain appeared, avian, feathers dull with stress, eyes flicking nervously. "You are a human?" the captain said. "Yes," Cole replied. "You're damaged." The avian exhaled shakily. "We expected raiders. Or worse." "You got neither," Cole said. "What happened?" "Dominion patrols withdrew without warning," the avian explained. "Pirates followed. We escaped barely." Cole listened carefully. This was the vacuum fear created. Power withdrawn too quickly left chaos behind. "We can escort you to the nearest safe route," Cole said. The avian hesitated. "Why?" Cole answered honestly. "Because if we don't, someone else will. And they won't help." The escort took hours. During that time, word spread quietly along civilian channels. A human ship had intervened, not to conquer, not to demand tribute, but simply to stabilize a dangerous situation. No announcement followed. No credit was claimed. Elsewhere, Dominion strategists reviewed the same reports with growing unease. Humans were not filling the power vacuum with fleets. They were filling it with presence. "That is more dangerous," one analyst admitted. "They are becoming necessary." On the Wayfarer, Cole stood in the observation deck after the convoy departed safely. Stars reflected in the glass, distant and cold. "Captain," the AI said, "long-term projections are updating." "Let me guess," Cole replied. "Conflict probability remains high." "Yes," the AI said. "But outcome variability has increased significantly." Cole smiled faintly. "Good." That night cycle, a message arrived from an unexpected source. A Dominion border governor requesting a private, unofficial exchange. No demands. No threats. Just questions. Cole authorized the channel. The governor appeared tense, his posture carefully neutral. "Captain Cole," he said. "I speak without sanction." "Then speak carefully," Cole replied. The governor hesitated. "Is it true that you could have destroyed more? That you chose not to?" "Yes," Cole said simply. "Why?" Cole met his gaze. "Because annihilation is easy. Living with what follows is harder." The governor absorbed that in silence. "If the Dominion steps back, if it ceases expansion, will humanity pursue us?" "No," Cole said. "But if you return to what you were doing, we won't pretend not to notice." The channel closed soon after. No agreements were signed. None were needed. Across the galaxy, small shifts accumulated. Fleets rerouted. Invasions postponed. Treaties reconsidered. Humans did not issue ultimatums, but their shadow lay across every strategic map. On the Wayfarer, the crew felt it too. They were no longer just sailors. They were symbols, whether they wanted to be or not. A junior engineer voiced the thought late in a quiet shift. "Sir, do you think they'll ever stop testing us?" Cole considered the stars beyond the hull. "No," he said. "But that's not the point." "What is?" "That every test changes the tester," Cole replied. As the Wayfarer continued its patrol, humanity's message settled into the fabric of interstellar consciousness. Not as a threat carved in stone, but as a principle written in experience. "Ambush us and we will end you. Respect us and we will stand beside you." The galaxy was still dangerous, still uncertain, but it was no longer ignorant. And that, Cole knew, was the real turning point. The final shift aboard the Wayfarer felt different from the ones before it. Not quieter, not calmer, but heavier, as if every crew member sensed they were standing at the edge of something vast. The ship glided through open space, engines humming steadily, no alarms, no incoming threats. And yet, tension lingered like a held breath. Captain Cole sat alone on the bridge, reviewing the long arc of reports that had accumulated since the ambush. Minor wars delayed. Occupations paused. Quiet revolutions sparked on worlds that had once believed resistance impossible. None of it traced back to a single human order, yet all of it pointed to the same moment. One choice. One refusal to surrender. The AI broke the silence. Captain, long-range observation confirms a structural change in interstellar behavior patterns. Aggressive expansion by major powers has decreased by 23%. Cole leaned back slightly. That's not peace, he said. No, the AI agreed. But it is restraint. Cole allowed himself a slow nod. Restraint was fragile. It could fracture under fear or ambition. But it was also the foundation of every lasting order humanity had ever known. A new signal arrived, this one routed through layers of civilian encryption. Cole authorized it without hesitation. The image that appeared surprised him. A gathering of faces, different species, different shapes, different worlds, all watching through a shared channel. None spoke at first. Finally, an elder figure stepped forward. "We did not call you here to ask for protection," the elder said. "Nor alliance." Cole waited. "We called," the elder continued, "to say that the story matters. That what you did changed how we see ourselves." Cole absorbed the words carefully. "We didn't do it for that." "Nevertheless," the elder replied, "you showed that power can be used without domination. That strength does not require cruelty. That matters." The channel closed soon after. No pledges were made. None were needed. On the Wayfarer, the crew went about their duties with renewed quiet focus. They had not won a war. They had not saved the galaxy. They had simply refused to play the role assigned to them. That refusal echoed. Far away, in places no human ship had ever traveled, young strategists rewrote doctrines that once relied on terror. Soldiers questioned orders they would have obeyed without thought. Leaders hesitated before launching fleets, wondering if the humans were watching. They often were. Not with weapons primed, but with attention. Weeks later, Captain Cole received final orders. The Wayfarer's patrol would end. Another ship would take its place. The story would continue without him at its center. As preparations were made to return to human space, Cole took one last look at the stars beyond the viewport. Somewhere out there, the memory of a lone ship standing against Annihilation had taken root. Not as a legend of invincibility, but as a reminder. Humanity was not the loudest voice in the galaxy. It did not demand obedience. It did not seek to rule. But it would not be erased. The Wayfarer turned toward home, its mission complete. Behind it, the galaxy adjusted its course, subtly, unevenly, but irrevocably. Because one ambush had failed. And in that failure, everything had changed.